Hello teachers, Ben Jennings here. We're studying Matthew chapter number 11 in session 10 of our 26-week study in the Gospel of Matthew. This particular session deals with John the Baptist, and then Jesus talking about John the Baptist and Jesus confronting doubts by John the Baptist and also by the people that he's preaching to about who he is, his identity. And so there's a talk about Jesus' identity here that's really important. I think that sometimes a teacher or a pastor might feel a little bit of a tension between talking about things that to the listener might seem like it's not very practical. You're not talking about my marriage. You're not talking about my family. You're not talking about everyday struggles when you're talking about some of these theological concepts, at least not obviously. But the truth of the matter is who Jesus is, the identity of Jesus, is absolutely the most practical and important thing you can talk about, because it really does influence how you think about everything else. Who Jesus is matters gigantically. It doesn't matter really about who I am, who the president is. Like, some of those things matter somewhat practically, depending on where you're at. But this is Jesus talking about his identity, and that really is key to this particular passage. So the objective statement that we chose is this: every person must make a decision about Jesus' identity. Here are three truths found in Matthew 11 that help us with that decision. And really, this decision is not just a one-time decision; it's an ongoing decision that people make all the time. So that's true. The first truth about his identity is this: that his works remove uncertainty. His works remove uncertainty, and that's really what he says. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 1, it says this: "And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now, when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another?" Jesus has commanded his disciples. He's talking about sending them. And while he sent them, he goes and preaches in all these different cities. John hears about it, asks the question. And of course, John's in what it says right there in verse number 2. He's in prison. So this is a tough time for John. I'm sure that he's got his own theological kind of assumptions. The Messiah is going to come. Maybe he's even thinking the Messiah is going to rule and to reign. John's very Jewish, right? And so he has this in the Old Testament, the coming of Jesus wasn't broken between his first coming and second coming. We understand that now. We know that now, but back then, all of those things that we think about in the second coming, the fact that he's going to come and to rule and to reign, the coming in the Parousia, meaning coming in full power, coming in to ascend to the throne. That's what he was looking for. And so because Jesus is going around and he's doing these miracles, he's kind of wondering, okay, is he doing miracles in the way that maybe some of the prophets did them, or is he doing them as the one that is coming? That's really kind of the question. Verse 4, Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and show John again these things which ye do hear and see. The blind receive the sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached unto them. And then he says, and blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. The things that Jesus actually did were actually described in the Old Testament as the works of the prophet that would come. So in a sense, he's answering, yes, I am the prophet that would come, and my works that I'm doing in total are the things that are testifying that I am the fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecy. And basically, he's just answering John's question in a way that John would recognize as a fulfillment of the prophecies that he was expecting for the Messiah. And so, in a sense, Jesus is saying, scoreboard. right? Like I remember one time I was playing basketball in high school, and my dad noticed that I was getting a little bit lippy. I was talking trash in the game. And I remember him telling me, it's my first recollection of hearing this phrase. He said, "Son, you need to just stop talking. You just let the scoreboard do the talking for you. Let your game talk for you." And I thought that was wise advice. That's what he sees. That's what Jesus is essentially saying here. You can know that I'm who is claimed in the Old Testament and who I am saying I am because of the works that I'm doing. And so his works remove uncertainty. There's an uncertainty in John, and then his works kind of is what he presents as Exhibit A as to who he is. We go on to say that in the same kind of thing in verses 16 through 19. Now in verses 7 through 15, Jesus then, after answering John's disciples, turns to the crowd and says some great things about John. He says, "John, there's no one born of woman greater than John." And he talks about how the people that listened to John, some went out and listened to him and responded to him. Some rejected him and called him a wine bibber and a glutton. In verse 16, Jesus says, those who are rejecting John are like the ones rejecting me. Verse 16, "But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows and saying, We have piped unto you and you have not danced. We have mourned unto you and you have not lamented. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he hath a devil." Basically, they're saying, even though John didn't do anything that would match the claim, they rejected his message and then assassinated his character, right? They're saying he is doing things that he didn't do and saying he came from the devil, which is a dangerous thing to do because there was a man sent from God whose name was John. So to say that the one that God sent has a devil is not good. Verse 19, "The Son of Man came eating and drinking." Now he's talking about himself. "And they say, Behold, a man gluttonous and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners." Then he says this, "But wisdom is justified of her children." There is the word justification means to declare righteous, like in the very salvific sense, justification by faith, as taught in Romans and Galatians and so many other places in the New Testament. Justification is being made righteous by the declaration of God because of the righteousness of Jesus. That's justification. But we also use justification in the sense that of evidence that that backs up a claim, right? So he says, "But wisdom is justified of her children." The children of wisdom would be people that do wisdom, right? The results of wisdom. And basically, this is another one of those scoreboard moments. They're saying that John came from a devil. They're saying that I'm a winebibber and a glutton. But in the end, the wisdom that I'm exerting, the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm saying, frankly, the fact that I'm going to rise up out of the grave, all the things that are going to happen that I'm going to do are going to justify my claim and not theirs. Again, scoreboard. That's what he's saying. The cynicism that they're having over who Jesus is being rebuked by his very life. And that's the whole point of this particular thing. And then he says this, basically, number 3, this third truth about his identity is this, that his promise rejects denial. There's a denial of his identity that he is rebuking, and he's making a promise about that. Verse 20, "Then began he to upbraid the cities wherein most of his mighty works were done, because they repented not." He's saying, I did the things that prove my identity, and people still don't believe and repent, right? Turning from their own ways to Jesus. So he's upbraiding, he's rebuking, he's calling them out. Verse 21, "Woe unto thee, Chorazin! Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works were done in you, had been done in pagan, Gentile, non-Jewish, Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. What is he saying? You think you're so much better because you're Jewish, but Gentiles respond better than you guys do. You're the people of God with all the history and the law, and yet I'm saying if the same things I'm doing were done